Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that the Wuthering Waves 3.0 marketing campaign is not coming to a stop just yet. A lot of people thought that Kuro Games was going to be taking a bit of a break until the Game Awards. That will be happening in about a week and a half on December 11th, but it turns out they're not. And they've actually gone ahead and they provided for us a massive 3.0 document that's going to be detailing a lot when it comes to things like the factions in Lahai-Roi. I'll just go through and give you all a preview. The factions of Lahai-Roi, exploration previews, alongside all of the different echoes, and then a brand new combat mechanic. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this page actually got updated from last night. There was this entire middle section over here that was missing, and we're going to be covering all of it in depth today. So let's go ahead, let's get it going. Lahai-Roi, known as Solaris' Extreme, is situated beneath the Roya Frostlands and is where Space Trek Collective Startorch Academy was established. Solaris' Extreme. This might mean it's really similar to like the North or South Pole if you're thinking about it from like real world terms. That's something that makes sense to me. So yeah, they've got the comprehensive mirror for historians. We're going to be starting off with the lore bit over here. Don't worry though, it's actually going to be very interesting. I know sometimes people can find content like this a bit dry. I've taken a bit of a preview and it's telling us a lot about what's coming ahead in the region. All right, so factions in Lahai-Roi. A warm and humid haven beneath the Roya Frostlands, also known as Solaris' Extreme. Ancient shifts in the planetary axis turned Lahai-Roi into what is now Solaris' Pole. Okay, I didn't pre-watch that part, and so remember what I said about North and South Poles? That's actually just my own intuition. I didn't pre-watch that part. Causing the Roya to move their settlements underground. This is where Space Trek Collective established Startorch Academy, the cross-border academic metropolis that has become a cradle of knowledge. And one thing we know about Lahai-Roi, especially given the cast of the playable units, let me just go ahead and get a nice like full frontal view of all the playable units for you guys. So we got this compilation over here, right? And one thing we noticed from like all of the names, you got like Sigrika, Mornier, Lucilla, Luke Herson, Lene. All of the names are like super different. It seems like the most multicultural region we've ever had. There was clearly like thematics of like China and all of the Jinzhou characters, and then you had Italy, Europe, and all the Renacida characters. Right here, it just seems like everything goes, which makes sense if it's a collective academy based off of knowledge rather than, you know, nationality. So info on Space Trek Collective. It's a non-profit international research alliance that's jointly created by various countries, regions, factions, and their goal is to advance methods of space travel by studying the exostrider for the benefit of all civilizations. And this is actually, this purpose over here is why I said I believe that Lahai-Roi Startorch Academy is inherently going to be tied to Fraxidus, simply due to the fact that they have similar goals. The goal of Fraxidus, right, is to go ahead and advance civilization and humanity to make them stronger, to be able to take on bigger threats. And the goal of the Space Trek Collective is to go to space, where there's probably going to be bigger threats that you would need these super-powered humans to be able to take care of. So, let's hear a little bit about Startorch Academy. The Academy forms part of the Cross-Border Research Alliance and is a knowledge seeker's paradise. Makes sense why Rover used to be a student there. The name comes from the phrase, "Let knowledge be your guiding star, raise high the torch of tomorrow." And that's why they have such a big focus on fire throughout the entire Startorch Academy advertisements. And it makes you think, which attribute are we probably going to unlock next? Which attribute do you guys think we're going to unlock next for the main character, guys? I don't know. It's probably the one that's getting referenced continually, over and over and over again. Even before 3.0 comes out, we're getting terms like flame bearers, torch bearers, lighting the spark, all of that shit. And well, guess what, guys? That's, well, literally exactly what's going on over here. And that's all that we see from all the advertisements. And the place is even called Startorch Academy. So if we don't get fusion, I'm gonna be honest over here, I don't even know what to say anymore thematically. Like, if we end up getting Electro instead, sure, why not? But one thing that I've kind of sort of realized is that Kuro does tend to stick to their schedule that they've gotten laid out. And one thing that they have consistently shown across all their materials is that this order of negative statuses is how they're releasing in the game. Before this list, we had Era Erosion up here, and then Spectrofrazzle in front. And it's been releasing in the order of Frazzle, Erosion, Havoc Bane, and guess what's next on the list, ladies and gentlemen? It's going to be Fusion Burst, and then we got Electro down here. So if he is actually Electro, then Kuro's got some explaining to do. All right. So that's a little bit on Startorch Academy and the Space Trek Collective. Now let's hear about the Research Institute. This place, like Startorch Academy, is part of the Collective. So once again, it's part of the Space Trek, it's focused on space travel, that sort of thing. They focus on cutting-edge research and applied advanced technologies. The ring-shaped institute connects to the Starward Riseway transport hub and overlooks all of Lahai-Roi from the top of the Exo Strider's Greatsword, which itself is a subject of their research. So, you might be a little bit confused by this one. What the hell are they talking about in terms of a greatsword? What the hell is the Exo Strider? So, you can kind of view it this way. I think the Exo Strider is a gigantic fucking Gundam. Yeah, that's the vibe that I'm getting from the Exo Strider. It's a gigantic Gundam. Otherwise, why the hell would it have a greatsword? And why would it be something that they get some help from? And you can kind of see over here, doesn't that kind of look like a head? Yeah, that kind of looks like a head and a helmet of something gigantic. Then you see things like the slumbering Exo Strider. And you can see over here, this looks like the dude's torso and back. So this is the Exo Strider. It's this gigantic fucking mecha. That wasn't really visible before, but now you're seeing over here, right? The head followed by the back. And that's how goddamn big this thing is. And it swings around. Civilization is a great sword.
Buried, ready to thrive.
One thing we know about Lahai-Roi is that they don't have a sentinel. Yeah, they don't actually have a sentinel protecting the region. I think that's because they got a gigantic fucking Gundam instead. Who needs a sentinel when you have a gigantic Gundam that swings around a gigantic greatsword? Because that's what's going on over here. And I think the idea is that the Exo Strider, because it's called the slumbering Exo Strider, right? It was actually left here by a space civilization. And some people found this way back in the day, and they were like, how the hell did this get here? Let's go find out where this is from. And they made the Space Trek Collective. And so I can imagine that there are going to be some resonators, some members of the cast, perhaps from the Research Institute faction, because I do believe that these are going to be the factions that the playable characters are from. That's actually why, and this is going to be one of the important bits over here, ladies and gentlemen. What's one thing that you noticed across the drip marketing for the units over here? I'll pull up the drip marketing for a couple of units, just to give you all a bit of a hint. It'll be an icon that actually shows up in the corner of some of the marketing. Let's just take a look at Linnea's as an example over here, right? You see her name, right? What do you see above that? You see this DNA helix, right? You see the DNA helix. That's the icon over here for Startorch Academy. So anyone with this sort of signaling over their name, probably going to be from Startorch Academy. Now, you're noticing over here, when you open up Mornier's, she doesn't have that, even though she's a professor. She's a professor at Startorch Academy, but the big thing about Mornier is that she's actually from the Research Institute. And that's why she's got this icon. So this is essentially giving us background on all of the playable units as they're going to be coming out. And so these are the two confirmed factions that we have from the drip marketing for 3.0. And I'm imagining that in future versions, we're going to be seeing more of these factions. And this is an example of one of them, the Roya tribe. And guess what? That's something we haven't seen before. But who from the drip marketing that we've gotten, who looks like they might be from a tribe? I've got my eyes set on one person that looks like it's her. Right, she has like the fucking runes. She has like the fucking herd stones, the rune stones, the ancient rune magic. And she looks like a milk farmer, right? It's Sigrika. She's going to be the person from the Roya tribe. So yeah, this lore reveal over here is actually telling us quite a bit about all of the drip marketed units. So yeah, let's read a little bit more about the Roya tribe now. The indigenous people of Lahai-Roi, indigenous, whose landmark structure, known as the Silicium, is found in the Bjartur Woods. The Roya consider it their calling to guide the growth and migration of Exoswarm by using a calendar they created from observing the Exostrider reactor drive's behavior. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I would say the vibe that I'm getting over here for Lahai-Roi, you might be familiar with it. It sounds like Horizon Zero Dawn, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. And when you see some of the supporting material that we got later on, you'll see, wow, this basically is Horizon Zero Dawn. That's the feeling, right? You got like these indigenous tribes and everything. You'll have like a blend of super crazy science alongside the more like indigenous tribe bows and arrows sort of things. Now, I'm really interested in seeing what this Sigrika unit's potential is going to be. And now I'm also wondering if Luke Herson is a member of the Roya tribe who just kind of like got into higher education, academia, that sort of stuff. Because one thing I've noticed is that Sigrika's name and Luke Herson's name, they kind of seem like similar thematically. So yeah, I think we're going to have some of those dynamics in there. And now that I'm looking at this, maybe she is supposed to be reminiscent of Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. Maybe that's what this character is actually supposed to be. And now that I'm beginning to read more and more, she does seem to be like an Aloy reference. 100,000,000%. So that's something cool to keep in mind. So that's going to be all the factions. And I think that the playable characters that we've had released thus far are just going to fall into these three lines. But yeah, hopefully we'll see more from the Roya tribe, because I do feel like there's a lot of potential over here for some very interesting dynamics. Now, let's read a little bit more and get on into a preview of exploration. All right, centuries ago, both the Calamity and the Exostrider, remember, the Gundam, emerged in Lahai-Roi from deep underground. The Frostlands caved in, devouring all life forms and erasing every sign of their existence. So yes, it is going to be a wasteland. In the darkness, the Exostrider swung its greatsword to seal off the Calamity. It drew the fiery reactor drive from its chest and lifted that undying light high up to the skies of Lahai-Roi. So, as you're seeing over here, there's something about like a reactor drive and stuff like that. I do believe they might actually show it somewhere in here. Now, that's the Void Watch Tower. That's the Tactical Proving Grounds. No, I don't think they showed the reactor drive in here, unfortunately. But yeah, do keep in mind that that's probably going to be something that's absolutely massive when you consider
Need of civilization.
the absolute specimen that this underground Gundam actually is. So yeah, it's probably like something like, you know that shit from Transformers where they got like the fucking Allspark and then they like Optimus Prime like puts it inside of him, and then at some point Optimus Prime like takes it out, and then he gets like depowered, but he like uses it to like fix something. That's what it feels like this thing did. It had like the Allspark or the reactor drive in its chest. It like fucked up the Calamity and then was like, all right, I'll save the world. So they probably view this thing as like their god. They probably view this thing as literally their god, or in the Wuwa universe terms, the equivalent of their Sentinel. Because as far as I'm concerned, when I read what this is, this does sound like the robot is essentially the Sentinel of your region, if it did this much and also sacrificed itself. And one of the big things that they're trying to do, I'm pretty sure, is wake this dude up. I think the focus of the story, and Fraxidus' involvement as well, is going to be around waking this thing up, harnessing its ability, using its power to be able to go to space. And guess what, guys? I'm pretty sure that Fraxidus is like, yeah, let's get this thing on our side. Let's learn how to control this thing. I'm pretty sure this is like priority item number 1 for Fraxidus, is learning how to be able to harness and use this thing's power, without a doubt. So from that sense, this is why I'm saying this might be one of the first chapters of the story where Fraxidus is like on our side, because I think this is one of the first times where like our goals from the beginning are probably going to be aligned. And I'm really interested in seeing if we're going to be able to see like the more productive side of their organization versus, you know, just all like the fighting and shit. Check the beginning of the video. Do they show the reactor drive at the beginning? Oh, they do. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is okay. This is the shit that the fucking robot took out of its chest to save the city. Basically, yeah, it's like the fucking Allspark. It's literally what I said from like the whole Transformers thing. This was probably powering it the robot. And right now, this powers Lahai-Roi. This powers Startorch Academy. This is like an energy core. And so they're probably trying to find like some sort of replacement for this that they can either put into the robot or they replace their sky and put this one back in the robot. Something like that. I'm pretty sure that's what the story is going to be centered around. So just a bit of a preview. Minor spoilers, if I am correct. But now let's move on. Okay, so exploration. The Void Storm, a wave-worn phenomenon unique to Lahai-Roi, envelops the region. The rift in Honami Crossing seems to provide a way in. And yes, this is something that we find out at the end of the 2.8 quest. Basically, Rover's frequencies start, like, shedding off of him like a fucking lizard skin. And, bro just literally starts leaking everywhere. And then he creates this portal to Lahai-Roi. I don't really know how else to describe it, because that's basically just what happens. He just randomly starts leaking everywhere, and then this portal just gets created. Am I wrong? Am I incorrect about my summary? Isn't that literally what happens? Yes, right? Yes, that is a factually accurate depiction. Yeah, you're right. It's just weird when you say it like that. Okay, all right. Oh, I didn't know. We're gonna be critics now, huh? Okay. According to Chisa, Rover once attended Startorch Academy. Maybe you'll get to meet some old friends. So we all remember that Chisa gave us back our Startorch Academy student ID card and mentioned that we used to make like course selection guides. And so I'm wondering if there's anybody on the playable cast that remembers Rover. I'm looking over here, and people off the top of my head who I think would know who Rover is, I'm going with Lucilla and Mornier. I think that they might have potential to actually know Rover. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think they're both hags. Yeah, I think they're both hags. I think they're both like 40 plus years old. And one thing that's lore accurate, ladies and gentlemen, resonators don't age. Yep. Hey, that's how it is. Resonators don't age once they reach like adulthood. And so she could be like 70. She could be like 100. I think Camelia's like 95, isn't she? That's the thing. That's what you got to think about. And I think it would be a great dynamic if these guys were like actually old. I would kind of like that if one of these two characters is like 50 or 60. Just to like show you that, yeah, resonators don't really age like that. But yeah, I'm assuming that that's what they mean when they say maybe you'll get to meet some old friends, because I'm not gonna lie, wouldn't it just be boring as fuck if Rover's friends from Startorch Academy are all just like a bunch of like literal citizen, like senior citizens? Probably not, because Startorch Academy, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not aware, it's a school only for resonators. It's only for resonators. And so there's a decent chance that everyone there is going to like look youthful. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Chisa also gets to see some of her old classmates, because that's a dynamic that I don't think Wuwa has explored a lot, even though it probably should. All right, now we're gonna get on into the wildlife and the echoes. So, they got the fantasy element over here, and this is something to keep in mind. I'm glad that they're gonna have this. It kind of reminds me of, like, the woods outside of Hogwarts, right? The Bjarder Woods of Lahai-Roi are home to extraordinary creatures who accompany the Roya tribe. So think about this as, like, Sigrika's shit. Oh my gosh, this is like, what is, like, that one like platformer game with like the one-eyed motherfucker who looks like Bard from League of Legends? That's like this. Yeah, Ori, there we go. Yeah. It is said that these creatures only approach people they trust. So yeah, we're probably gonna end up going to the Bjarder Woods with Sigrika. These are all gonna love her because they look pretty cute. I'm not gonna lie. They're like obese, but then they have like the tiny arms and then like no neck. Yeah, I hope we can get one of these to, like, follow us around. Like, that would be actually fun to have this, like, follow us around in the overworld. Like, just, it's so chunky, bro. Just look at that shit. It's literally chunky. It's got no neck. All right, now let's move on to the echoes. And remember what I said before about Horizon Zero Dawn? Remember what I said before about ancient civilization combined with futuristic mechs? Yeah, that's gonna be front and center over here. So let's take a look at this first echo. And the first thing that you're probably gonna say is, this looks like a fucking transformer. And what I said was, specifically, bro, this looks like Starscream. This literally looks like Starscream, brother, from Transformers. shit looks pretty legit. It looks pretty cool. I really like the design. I like how sharp it is. I love how futuristic and mecha it is as well. And then having this, a full-on like Gundam transformer, like bro, this thing will turn into a jet in combat, I bet. Combined with this as well in the preceding slide, it looks like 3.0 is going to have a lot of varied elements. And I think one of the most important things is that it's going to have a variety of different settings. So it seems like everybody is going to have something for them, right? Because there are doubtless a lot of individuals that came to Wuthering Waves because of the fantasy aesthetic from Renesita. So I'm glad that they're still appealing to it over here with this section of the map. But of course, right, a lot of people also came to Wuthering Waves for this futuristic sci-fi element. So it seems like we're getting a blend of both, and the echoes in this region are going to be some of the most varied ones yet. Because we could say all of Renesita stuff, when we look at like the repository, right, when we look at like the databank of echoes, it's pretty safe to say that like all of like the Renesita stuff is like really fantasy-y, right? It's pretty much all entirely fantasy. Then you start going back in time and you're like, oh wait, we have things like the carapace. This thing's literally a fucking car, right? And these more like futuristic looking guys over here. So it seems like a bit of a departure from the Renesita aesthetic, but I think that's something good that should have happened over time, just to add more variety to the game. So that's the Gundam. Next, they got a horse. And I'm gonna be honest over here. Is this thing gonna be mountable? Because I feel like a lot of people are going to be upset if you add this thing that looks like it should be ridden, but then it's not gonna be rideable. I'm gonna be honest over here. Is this gonna be the new exploration mechanic in 3.0? And if it is, that makes sense. Are we gonna have mounts? And by mounts, I mean Lene gets her car to move around, or sorry, Lene has her motorcycle to move around. I guess like Mornier has like a, bro, what if this is actually like her, what if she rides around on this thing? What if this is like her whip? She has like a UFO that she just like she just like goes around like that on it. Now that I'm thinking about it, wait, this might be her vehicle, bro. And I suppose that maybe the 3.0 characters, they have their own unique vehicle, and then everyone else gets like this fucking elk. That might be what they do. Yeah, everyone has like a baseline vehicle model, all the new characters, and then everyone else gets like a default fucking elk to move around. That kind of makes sense. And I don't think anyone could complain as long as they all go relatively the same speed. It's just, you know, the newer characters get a customized model. Maybe. I don't know. That just sounds interesting. And I guess next, we've got... These really remind me of Encore's dolls for some reason. I'm not really sure how I feel about it. These guys look like they commit seppuku in combat. Yeah, I'm getting that vibe. I'm getting that vibe from them that they're going to like walk up to you and blow up. I don't really know what it is, but yeah, these look like they're just going to be annoying. So, I mean, the design of them is like, okay, they really are they kind of look more like puppets than echoes to me, but it does make sense. All right, that's going to be exploration. That's going to be all the new echoes. That's going to be the designs and the lore. Now, let's get on into perhaps the most exciting piece over here, and that's going to be the new combat mechanics. And the main thing that's going to be talked about over here, ladies and gentlemen, is tune ability, which is going to be released in 3.0, but we do have a bit of an interesting follow-up to this that we're going to be releasing later. All right, so let's go through the mechanics piece by piece. Off tune level and mistune. So basically, your attacks will build up an enemy's off-tune level, which will be this meter that shows up on the side. If you've actually played ZZZ, this will actually probably remind you of the anomaly bar that's in the game. Once enemies' off-tune level is at max, they enter a mistuned state. So you can actually see there's a new enemy over here, one of the new echoes as well. Very, very, very fantasy-like design. And now that it's entered the mistuned state, they've gotten this new sort of like graphical stuff showing up next to them. Attacking a mistuned state enemy will cause a tune break, which deals additional damage and resets their off-tune level. So you can see how this dynamic is working over here. It looks like it actually functions almost exactly the same as Anomaly. I'm going to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, that's what it looks like. It's not like Super Break from HSR. It's not like Break at all from HSR. It literally just looks like Anomaly from ZZZ. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I don't necessarily think it's the worst thing ever. I think there's a lot of problems when it comes to Zenless Zone Zero's combat, and I think the integration of Anomaly in that game, where you basically just build up a gauge on the side that, well, I guess everyone inflicts, and then you deal damage once that gauge fully fills up. It adds more flavor. I don't think it actually adds too much additional complexity, but we do have to see how stat bonuses in the game. Stat bonuses in Wuthering Waves, right? Like, what does this damage scale off of? What is, like, the build variety that's going to be introduced from this mechanic? Is it going to have any, like, actual meaningful decisions to make in character building? Or is it just going to be extra damage that every character does, right? I think I still need to see more details about how this works first before being able to decide if it's good or bad for the game. I would just say overall, it doesn't look like something at a baseline that can take away too much of it, but I do hope that it's integrated in a fun way and hopefully adds more build variety into the game, where suddenly you might have like tune-based builds, right? You could have tune-based builds versus crit-based builds or something like that. And if that's a decision that you can make, that could be very interesting, but we'll just have to see. All right, next up, we got the Tune Break skill. For powerful enemies, cast a Tune Break skill after they enter the mistune state and when their off-tune level is at max to shatter their defenses and cause a Tune Break. So you can think about it this way, ladies and gentlemen. When you're fighting enemies that I guess don't have a stagger bar, right? They're just like one-cost mobs. Then simply attacking them will cause a Tune Break. But if you're fighting against enemies that are a bit bigger, that are elites, that might have like their own shield or something, then that's when you'll have a special input to essentially, I guess, do like a riposte, right? Think about games like Where Winds Meet. Literally, you break their defenses, and then you press an input button for a critical attack that deals a ton of damage. That's what it appears to be over here. I'm not really sure how this is going to interact with an existing break system that we already have right now. I wonder if this is going to be like a replacement for the break system, because essentially, and this is kind of like my weird vibe when it comes to this mechanic, when you have like this already existing gray break bar and then you're introducing another one, it could make things feel a bit hectic. And I guess the thing is that breaking the white bar in this game, the regular vibration strength bar, all it does is stun the enemy. It doesn't actually make you inflict more damage, but perhaps there's a chance that your tune break, your off tune level will generate faster while the enemy's vibration strength is broken. So this could potentially be the devs introducing another way to spice up the combat, because currently all that breaking vibration strength does is just CC the enemy for an extended period of time. It does nothing else. They don't take additional damage. They don't take break damage either. It's just kind of like there. So maybe this is something that's going to interact with it more, but it is cool to see that they are going to be adding in those QTEs that I feel like everyone's been missing. You all remember this fight over here, right? And one thing you do during this fight is a finisher animation, which I think a lot of people really liked and they thought it was really cool. And I guess it looks like over here, they're going to be reintroducing those finisher animations into the game. And I am wondering, is every single character going to get their own unique animation? Or is it going to be like one static attack for every single weapon type? I'm hoping that everyone has their own unique animation. I think it's something that they can just build into every single kit. And if they just take it with like this perspective over here, where it looks like a little bit like an ultimate and they just do the same attack every time, that would be neat. Because what I'm seeing over here is that like Yang Yang just did like a bunch of slashes like this. This looks like something that fits her design, right? This is basically similar to a move that she actually performs in-game. So it's making me think that we're gonna have unique animations for every single type of character. And that would be pretty fucking cool. So, when it comes to Tune Break skills, they deal damage to enemies, reduce their vibration strength, and interrupt their attack patterns, and then resets their off-tune level. So, I would actually... It sounds kind of similar to like a Giga Parry. It basically sounds like a parry that you can activate at any point, and I think that this is something really great to add to the game, especially because you can do this, guys. You can delay your Tune Break. And this is going to be a bit of like a gameplay demonstration clip from the TOA of where I'm going to say that this mechanic is going to be amazing. So read, right, just for a second over here about how it says it interrupts their attack pattern. So what we know is that there are some enemies in this game that have some of the most cancerous attack patterns in the game. And I think the best way to demonstrate that is to just simply go into the TOA and show you guys exactly the type of boss that I think this is going to help out with. Let's go ahead. Let's pop open this floor and I'll show you a boss that has one of the most toxic attack patterns in the game. And what better way to showcase this than, you know what? Let's just go back to one of our classic teams over here. Right? And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So, this is going to be a gameplay demonstration where I tell you exactly how this Tune Break mechanic is going to dramatically shift up how we fight some of the older enemies in this game. So, I'm just over here, right? Oh, wait, let me turn down the volume a little bit. One thing that this boss does that's really giga annoying is it freezes you, right? But then it also does this shit where it jumps into the air 3 times and is one of the most toxic enemies in the game. So I'll make sure to actually show you guys what I'm talking about. It's not that move over there. It'll be a different one. Basically, I call him like Ice Roya. I call him the Pogo Stick Master. So at some point in the fight, he will like teleport to the middle of the arena. And oh, right, it's right here. Check this out. Imagine if I could Tune Break him during that animation. Imagine if I was able to Tune Break him and interrupt his attack chain during the start of that animation. Guess what I would have done? I would have probably broken him. I could have probably broken him and then also completely avoided that super annoying attack. That's just a little preview of how I think that this mechanic is going to be able to be used super strategically. You can think about it this way. We're basically being given a combo breaker button. We're basically being given a fucking combo breaker button when the boss is doing some attacks that we really, really don't like. Another example, right, of an attack that we're probably going to be able to do some sick combo breaking shit on. You'll see it in the overdrive zone. Y'all remember this? Y'all remember this bastard over here? Let me show you guys a little bit about what this guy does. Let's see this shit. So, the start of this fight isn't that bad, right? But we all know that he kind of tends to do a little bit of something. So, basically, to describe it, Crownless has something called a special attack, where he'll grow red and then essentially go into a whole fucking combo. And the only way in the... Oh, I think it's happening very soon. Yeah, right here. So, right here. Imagine if I could Tune Break bro when he's doing this.
Time to fight back.
Imagine if I could Tune Break bro when he's doing that. That's what people call the Crownless combo. It's essentially 10 to 15 seconds.
I can take it.
Not really that long. It's more like 10 seconds of him just going in and slashing like crazy with no space between his attacks. All you can do really effectively is like dodge, dodge counter, then dodge, dodge counter again. And he does that for like 10 fucking seconds, guys. And so doesn't this Tune Break mechanic, after you're seeing some visible demonstration clips in game of where it's going to be so useful and spice up combat a lot, isn't this going to be a great add? And my answer is probably really good, but but I still need to see how things like scaling, all of that, how it changes the game. Does it really do anything other than provide a free parry? And if it does it make the game too easy? That's all stuff that we're gonna have to explore when the update goes live and we see how it shifts combat. But yeah, that's gonna be our entire Lahai-Roi reveal page for today, ladies and gentlemen. All I gotta say is that the hype for this version just keeps on growing. The hype for this version just keeps going on, and I have no idea if Kuro Games is going to slow down prior to what's it called, the Game Awards, or if they're just gonna go full steam ahead and then we'll just have one of the craziest marketing weeks in the history of gacha. But yeah, off to a great start. Very excited to see what's coming up next. Let me know what you all thought, ladies and gentlemen. Peace out.